Dr. Ian Smith, welcome to the Keto Camp podcast. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to join you.
What's interesting is about 14, 15 years ago, I got into the health space after I went through my own health transformation. And I remember the beginning stages when I was a personal trainer and I used to have a CrossFit gym. I kept seeing your books everywhere. Saw your books at the bookstores, at airports. And I thought, man, this guy's crushing it. Like, it's so inspirational to me. And, now we fast forward. How many books have you written so far?
Well, my new book, The Metflex Diet, is number 24.
It's
So
amazing.
I'm getting old, but the science keeps changing and the information keeps coming, and as long as there's new stuff out there, I want to keep writing about it.
Yeah, right on. People need that info because a lot of people are unhealthy and suffering. So 24 books. Congratulations. I love that. We'll get into your new book, and I love it. Your team sent me a PDF copy that I was blessed to read before the interview. But I want you to share your story with my audience. What even got you involved into the health space, and why are you so committed to getting the message out there?
Well, I've always wanted to be a physician since I was a little boy. So I was one of those kids that really had direction about what he wanted to do. So becoming a doctor, excuse me, was a fait accompli for me. That was going to happen. But I never thought I would be this kind of doctor. I was supposed to be a neurosurgeon. And I went to undergrad, then med school, then did my residency and was training to become a surgeon. And then I got involved in television by accident. And so I started doing medical journalism while I was training to become a physician. And my career kind of bifurcated. Like I had these parallel paths that were happening. I was doing TV and I was doing my residency training. And then what happened was basically I was doing a column for Time magazine. And in my column, I wrote the personal health column. So I talk about issues of the day, if there was a medication recall, if the flu season, whatever it was. But I kept getting a lot of questions about weight loss and nutrition and food and fat burners and metabolism. Things, by the way, I didn't know the answers to because back when I was in medical school, we had maybe half a day of training in nutrition, which is not even a fraction of enough. And so I felt very insufficient in my ability to answer my readers who were asking me questions that were important to them, and I didn't have the answers or the knowledge. And so I started learning about nutrition basically and about weight loss and diets and all those kinds of things, vitamins, minerals, and supplements. And what happened was I got an email from a publisher to my column email address, and they asked me, "Hey, do you want to write a book?" I was like, "Who doesn't want to write a book? Of course I want to write a book." And so they signed me up for 2 books, and they said, "You can write whatever you want." I was like, "Really?" And so my first book was about nutrition. It was called The Take Control Diet. And I wrote it simply because I wanted to answer questions to my readers at Time Magazine who were completely lost and confused about what they needed to do to undergo a transformation.
That's awesome. I love that they gave you the flexibility, no pun intended, to write whatever you wanted to write about. So, all right, that's 24 books ago. Now we're 24 books in, and your brand new book called The Metflex Diet is a complete 6-week program. It's a complete game plan. I reviewed the whole book, and I love how it's just so simple for either somebody who's a beginner or somebody who's advanced to follow. And I love the theme. My book, my latest book that I wrote 2 years ago is called Keto Flex, right? So I love that we both have flex in there because it's all about the metabolic flexibility. And in your book, you talk about what exactly that is. But first, let's talk about the opposite, metabolic inflexibility, because in your book, you talk about what we see out there in America. Maybe you could explain what you see in terms of the unhealthiness of the American population.
Yeah, well, there are 4 major fuels for the body, right? And 2 of the major fuels are carbs and fats. And that is what we tend to eat in macro supply, which is why we call them macronutrients. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are unable to process efficiently or burn efficiently both carbs and fats. They typically can burn one well and not the other. Carbs, they do well, no good in fats. Fats, well, no good in carbs. And you've heard people say, for example, "I can't eat carbs. I get bloated. I gain weight so easy when I eat carbs." People really are not able to process these macronutrients as well as they need to. And the inability to process both carbs and fats is what is called inflexibility. your metabolism is not flexible enough to be able to burn whatever fuel that it sees. I liken it to a hybrid car. You know, a hybrid car has a battery and it has gas. And so when the battery runs out, the gas kicks in and you're able to keep going. Two different energy sources, and the car can use both of them depending on what is available. That gas, that car, that hybrid car is a metabolically flexible car. The car that only operates on gas, when that tank is empty, if you don't fill that tank back up, your car is not going to run. That's a metabolically inflexible car because it only uses one fuel source. And so that really is the premise of metabolic flexibility and inflexibility. And transferring it to the human body, the idea is if you're only burning carbs well and not fats, or fats well and not carbs, you are inflexible. But if you can burn both of them, then you are metabolically flexible. And that is what the MetFlex diet is. It's a 6-week program to teach people's bodies how to burn both efficiently by exposing the body to carbs and to fats and doing a little keto and carb loading. And that is kind of how the program works. And that's what science says. Science says, for example, that doing what's called cyclical keto, cycling in and out of keto, short-term keto, can actually improve this concept that I'm calling, I don't call it, but the concept that's been termed metabolic flexibility.
Yeah, well explained. The analogy with the hybrid car, it makes so much sense. So many people who are sugar burners, they're not burning fat, but only sugar. That's the majority of people. They are like those gas trucks that, you know, transfer gas or take gas to gas stations. They have all this fuel on top of their truck, but they can't access it. It's like they need to be able to access it, right? So, you know, what I see in my space, Ian, is the opposite. I see the metabolic inflexibility with people who do keto too long. And I'm not a fan of long-term keto. You just stated that you're not either, because that's a different form, but also another form of metabolic inflexibility. So it's a similar principle with my book, Keto Flexing. It's like, yeah, let's get you fat adapted, and then let's be really good at burning both of these major energy sources, sugar and fat, so that you're not leaning on one, because we're designed to go back and forth. And that's exactly what your book talks about. So what are the signs for those listening and watching? What are some signs to pay attention to that they might have a metabolism that is inflexible?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no blood test. That would be nice and easy. We could take a blood test and say, hey, you're inflexible. And there we know we need to make some changes. But there are several signs I mentioned in the book. Some of them are, number one, if you're someone who needs some type of stimulant to get you up and moving and going, that it could be a sign that you're inflexible. If you're someone who just has eaten a meal and you have cravings very close to right after your meal, that could be a sign. If you've just finished a carbohydrate-rich meal like pasta, which is what's on my plan very often, and you're very sluggish after having this pasta, that could be a sign. If you're someone who's had a problem, losing fat mass, you have these pockets of fat that you just can't get rid of, that's a sign. Even signs of depression, could be a sign of metabolic inflexibility. So those are some of the signs that you actually may be metabolically inflexible. And by the way, a lot of people are metabolically inflexible and don't even realize it.
Mm. Yeah, so true. Yeah, you're right. Your book shared some studies, and I remember that study that came out from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill in 2018, where they said a 10-year study over 8,000 participants, they said that 88% of American adults are metabolically unhealthy, or in your words, metabolically inflexible. And there were some more recent studies that showed it's upwards to like 93%. So that's a big problem, because that's leading to, of course, insulin resistance, diabetes, heart disease, cancer, etc. So the name of the game is what you and I are talking about, which is metabolic flexibility, health over dogma. And that's very important for the keto space. And majority of my audience are people who do keto. And I love keto. It's fantastic. It's just not something we are in a constant state of. We're seeking health, not dogma. And I love that you have a very similar approach. So with that, in your book, you talk about how to achieve this metabolic flexibility. And I've extracted a few things that I really resonated with. And I want you to educate my audience on some of these steps. So one of them, you wrote to wait 3 hours to have breakfast. What's the benefit of that? I want to take a quick break from the video you're watching to share something with you that has made a big difference with my health and the thousands and thousands of students that I teach all across the world. Now, this is a unique device that has been shown to help with skin health, sore muscles, wrinkles, psoriasis, eczema, scoliosis, migraines, sleep issues, arthritis, acne, scar tissue, wound healing, relaxation, and also boost testosterone levels. What am I talking about? What is this miracle drug? Well, it's not a miracle drug. It's red light therapy. As you can see here, this is called photobiomodulation. And I use this red light therapy device every single day. Not only do I use it, my fiance uses it. Our dogs and cats love it. And the device I have here is from Bon Charge. Bon Charge has a different range of big panels, small panels, from affordable to ones that are a little bit more money depending on how much you want. And I love this product. I feel so good. And it doesn't take a lot of time to get all these benefits. I simply take off my glasses, which is Bon Charge glasses, by the way, turn it on, and I have it running for 20 minutes once a day. And turn it on, and as you can see, I just leave it there on my desk as I work. 10, 20 minutes per day will suffice, and it makes a big difference. You're going to notice a big improvement with your skin health and all the things we mentioned earlier in just a matter of weeks. So if you want to get your hands on this Bon Charge red light device or get their big panels, they also have panels that you could take on the go that are more affordable, then head over to boncharge.com/ketocamp and use the coupon code KETOCAMP to get 15% off your red light device, or as a matter of fact, your entire order. Any product, you can get 15% off with that nice coupon code KETOCAMP. So whether it's these Bon Charge blue light blocking glasses, their sauna blanket, or any of their awesome products, use that coupon code KETOCAMP at checkout. We'll drop a link down below. Go check them out. They are awesome. And let's get back to today's video.
Well, people have to understand what intermittent fasting does, right? And so this is part of fasting. When you are fasting and you have consumed all of the energy from food, you've consumed all of your glycogen, which is the storage form of glucose that you can find in your muscles and your liver. When you have all those sources of energy gone, what's left is your fat. Your fat is a storage form of energy. And the objective is to drive our body into the fat stores and break the fat down and use that as our energy instead of using food or instead of using glycogen. So the longer you can stay in a fasted state, the more time you're going to be spending in a fat burning mode. And so what I try to tell people is, if you're just, let's say you're just getting into a program where you're learning how to fast, one simple way to do it is wait a few hours after you get up, because you've just been fasting overnight, by the way. When you're sleeping, you're not eating. So that's a fast. So everyone's fast, by the way. Just people think it's
right.
They're not doing it. You're doing it when you're sleeping. But let's extend it. So when you wake up, wait a few hours before you have your first meal, because that gives you more time in that fat burning time period. And I think that's important for a lot of people. And on the flip side, I say a couple hours before going to sleep, don't eat anything. So start your fasting then. So you're fasting a couple hours before you go to sleep, through your sleep, and then 3 hours after. That is one way of doing a very unofficial, slowly working your way into intermittent fasting.
Yeah, so that puts you like around 16, maybe 17, 18 hours of a fast, depending on how many hours with that buffer. But Ian, we've been told that if you skip a meal, you're going to slow down your metabolism. You're telling us it's going to help. How does that work?
Well, because it's not just skipping one meal that's going to slow down your metabolism. Your system has to be extremely challenged before it slows down. Yes, theoretically, if you skip enough meals or you're malnourished too frequently, then your body gets confused and your body says, well, I don't know if another meal is coming, so let me hold on to the fat and the energy I have and slow down my metabolism. But that only happens in extreme cases. I mean, if you starve yourself, which means don't eat for 3 or 4 or 5 days, then your body is going to slow down your metabolism because it's a protective mechanism. But skipping one meal is not going to do it, because you need an extended period of time of the body having no energy influx for it to then say the correction is going to be, guess what, guys, we're slowing down. So one meal skipping is not going to do it.
Yeah, there you go. So those who do OMAD too much, chronically doing one meal a day, that will, to Ian's point, I agree, that will slow down your metabolism because your body wants to survive. And if you're near a constant caloric restriction, I mean, your metabolism is going to match that Otherwise, you would wither away. So the metabolism needs to slow down. You can't keep producing all this energy if you're lowering your energy through calories. So I love that. You're so right. It's the feast, the famine, the feast and famine. Now fasting is such a popular kind of buzzword, even though it's nothing new about it. I know you're a big fan of it, but people are now forgetting to feast. They're forgetting about the opposite of that. So I love that you teach the importance of feasting as well.
Yeah, and I tell people I have a Facebook group which is called Metflex Diet, the name of the book, and we have 15,000 people who are doing this program together. So I encourage those who are listening or watching to join it. Once again, Metflex Diet. I'm in the group helping people. We have a Zoom session tonight, for example. So I do 2 Zoom sessions a week. We share recipes. The average weight loss so far in 6 weeks has been between 14 and 16 pounds. But to your point about fat burning, people have not just lost weight; they've lost between 8 to 10 inches on average, and that is the fat. They're burning their fat because they're doing this fasting. I do 3 different types of fasting in the book. I do time restricted feeding, which is what we just talked about. I do the 5-2 method, and I also do the alternate day fast. But when you combine fasting and you combine keto, cyclical short-term keto with carb loading, and you combine it with some exercise, I believe that the reason why people are seeing so much success with the program is because they're taking all these things that by themselves can be effective. And so it's 1 + 1 + 1 = 5. It's, additive. It's more than what you would expect in a linear equation. I think that is very important for people to understand.
Yeah, what's beneficial is that it just constantly keeps the body adapting and guessing. And you're a fitness guy. All great fitness coaches understand that. If you give your client the same workout routine every week, yeah, that first week or two, they might get some results. And after week 3, they plateau and they might actually lose even the benefits. But if you keep changing the routine, high rep, low weight, and then vice versa, different movements, the body has to adapt. And that adaptation creates healthier mitochondria. It creates just a robust of changes. And you could do the same thing with your intermittent fasting schedule, with your eating keto, what I call keto flexing, but keto cycling. So I love that. It works like a charm, and it's proof with the students that are going through your course. And you also talk about the benefits of getting in a fasted cardio workout, which I personally love to do. So how does that elevate your fat burning mechanisms?
When you, first of all, a fasted cardio classically means that you have nothing to eat before you do the workout, and you have nothing to eat for about an hour after the workout. So you're doing your cardio in a fasted state. Now, this is not for everyone. I mean, you have to, listen to your body signs. If you're faint or you feel like you're off kilter, you may have to stop doing that. But people should try to do a fasted cardio workout, because what that does is, think about it. If you are in a fasted state and you don't have food energy on board, and you've gotten rid of those stored glucose, like I talked about, in the glycogen, and now you're left with trying to get to your fat to use that for energy. Remember, no matter what you're doing, if you're alive, your body requires energy. So when you're working out, you are multiplying that energy demand tremendously. And so you have no food on board, you have no more glycogen left. We're using your fat for energy. You've now upped your energy demand. And so what is your body going to do? Your body's going to go into that fat storage even more, because it needs more of that fat for energy. And so if you can do a fasted workout, what you're doing is not only extending your fast, but you're upping the energy requirement, which makes the fast even more effective, because you're not just burning fat now because you need to live. You're burning fat now because you need to meet the increased energy demand of your workout.
Yeah, well said. Exactly. You're putting your body fat at that front of the metabolic bus. You got to use that first versus that protein shake or whatever it was. So
That's
yeah, I'm a
right.
big fan. So, let's talk about what type of cardio. Could it be simply like a walk? Does it have to be sprinting? What do you mean by a cardio workout?
Well, I prefer HIIT, high intensity interval training, which means periods of high exertion alternating with periods of rest or low exertion, for example. And you can do it in the book. I have all these different exercises that you don't need any equipment or any gym membership, though I like gyms. But if someone, wants to work out in their hotel room, in their backyard, in the living room, these are workouts you can do. But for example, you could do running in place or jumping jacks. You can do it for 30, 35 seconds and then rest for 30 seconds, then go back and do it for 35 seconds. So it's this oscillation between heavy exertion, intense exertion, and rest or low exertion. And that is what high intensity interval training is, HIIT, HIIT. And so I heavily recommend that. Studies have shown that HIIT, for example, will not only burn more calories, but it can burn calories up to 24 hours after the session is over, rather than just walking on a treadmill for 30 minutes at a steady state. For most people, unless you are severely deconditioned and out of shape, that treadmill work is going to have minimal impact. But if you take 20 minutes and do a HIIT workout, that will have a tremendous impact for people. And so my recommendation always is, if you can, try to do HIIT 3 times a week. And, it sounds intense, but it's a lot easier than what most people think it is.
Yeah, I love that because it kind of goes against the old way of thinking that you got to like do a 60-minute treadmill walk and in order to burn fat, and you're going to be much more effective, to your point, if the 20-minute HIIT workout. I personally love the Tabata sort of workouts where it's 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off,
Hmm.
interval sort of training. Yeah, that works really well for me, and especially for entrepreneurs. You don't want to spend an hour, 2 hours at the gym or in your room working out. If you could get in a good workout, 20 to 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week, that is ideal for somebody who's really busy. Let's transition to sleep. Your book talks about the importance of sleep, and I want you to educate us on what happens during sleep as it relates to fat loss. But before you get to that, do you think somebody who is wanting to lose weight, they want to burn fat, and they're sacrificing sleep to get up earlier and go work out, what do you think about the person doing that? Are they doing it the wrong way? Should they get more sleep and maybe skip that workout until they get quality sleep?
Wow, that's a great question. And I wish I had the answer to that, because I've never thought about that question, but it's a very elegant question. You need good sleep. You need to have good sleep hygiene. Sleep is very important for metabolic flexibility. It's very important for hormonal rhythms and restoration of your body. By the same token, you also want to get that workout in. So my recommendation, I guess, to someone would be, if your morning workout is going to compromise your sleep, is it possible to do your workout later in the afternoon? Now, I tend to be a morning workout guy. I love morning workouts. They release endorphins, which are your body's happy chemicals. And I think that people, it's easier, by the way, working out in the morning when there's less distractions. And also, by the way, you don't have other things stopping you. When you work out in the afternoon or evening, then there are always 1,000 reasons why you can't work out. You got to go somewhere, you don't feel good, you had a bad day, whatever it is. So I do encourage morning workouts, but I also think that you have to be careful of compromising whether or not you're doing your workout or you're doing your sleep. I don't know. If you said to me, okay, I'm going to lose a half hour of sleep, I don't think losing a half hour of sleep is going to be so impactful, and that the loss of that is not as great as the gain of doing that workout. But if you're talking about cutting your sleep by an hour, hour and a half, I think that becomes problematic. That's a lot of sleep, and a lot of time your body still needs to be in restoration mode.
Hey, Keto Camper, I want to interrupt the video real quick to share with you what I believe is one of the most important nutrients that we should be taking every single day. Most people are deficient in this nutrient, and it's responsible for over 400 enzymatic activities in your body. And your body just doesn't make it. So it's required to be taken in a high quality supplement or from high quality foods. The problem with the food is that our soil is depleted and it's hard to get this quality nutrient. So what is this nutrient? It's called magnesium. But I'm going to share something with you very fascinating. Check this out. Upgraded Formulas has this incredible product called Upgraded Magnesium. And Barton Scott, the developer of this product and company, he's a brilliant guy. He created nanoparticle magnesium, which has the ability to penetrate your membranes and go right into your cells. There's a 99.99% absorption rate. Now, this is unheard of because with other magnesium products, you better believe it's not that high. And there's an interesting study they're doing with Upgraded Mag I want to share with you real quick. Early results from a sleep study with Dr. Sachin Patel showed that the average doctor in the group using this product has achieved an improvement of over 35% in deep sleep. More sleep studies and a double-blind controlled placebo study with upgraded magnesium is coming sooner. And you better believe those results are going to be super exciting. We already know this. Upgraded magnesium is easily the best supplement you can take for better sleep, including deep sleep, muscle aches, cramping, and any other signs of a magnesium deficiency, which is so common, unfortunately. What makes upgraded formulas unique, as I mentioned, is that it's a nanoparticle. This means it is absorbed very rapidly and efficiently by your blood cells. They produce a plasma like version of minerals that the body recognizes and absorbs without digestion. And the results are phenomenal. I really believe just taking this for a couple of nights, you'll notice a big difference. So if you want to get upgraded formulas, upgraded mag, and any of their products. They also do some incredible hair mineral analysis tests to see your mineral imbalances and deficiencies, etc., and other incredible products that we've referenced before. Head over to upgradedformulas.com and use the coupon code KETOSIS to get 15% off your entire order. That is upgradedformulas.com. Coupon code is KETOSIS to get 15% off your entire order. I'm going to drop a link for you down below in the notes of this video. Okay, let's go back to this video. Yeah, I agree with you. So what is happening during sleep that's going to help us with fat loss?
Well, the beauty of sleep is that you're fasting. I mean, people have to understand that if you are alive, that means your heart is beating, your blood is circulating, your organs are working, and your lungs are pumping. If you are alive, that requires energy, and you have to get that energy from somewhere. It doesn't, the body is not robotic in the sense that it works on a battery. It works on energy sources. And so, if you no longer have food energy on board, you no longer have the glycogen on board, you're going to start using fat energy on board, which is another reason why I tell people do not consume food so close to going to bed at night. People eat these big boluses of food, 2,000 calories, 1,800 calories at night. Then they go to sleep. Well, number one, because your body is in a almost quasi-vegetative state, you're not doing anything but lying down and sleeping and eating, and you're breathing and heart beating. When you consume all those calories, you aren't burning them off. And so overnight, the body's got to do something with those calories, and it starts storing those in your fat cells. It makes your fat cells larger. But if you don't eat so close to going to sleep while you're sleeping and there's no energy on board, once again, that's another promoter of trying to burn your fat overnight.
Yeah, that's a big takeaway right there. There's a lot of people who have that bad habit of eating and going to bed. That used to be my bad habit until I felt, groggy when I woke up, and then I got into the research and I discovered that insulin and melatonin have this inverted relationship, right? So when we eat all this food and we get this insulin spike, it's going to decrease your melatonin levels, and that's not good for not just at sleep, but also it's an antioxidant. So there's so many reasons why we don't want to eat before bed, especially as it relates to fat loss. You mentioned, Ian, in the beginning that there are four energy systems, but two that are primary, which is sugar or fat. What are the other two that you were thinking of?
The primaries are carbs and fats, and then the two others are protein and your body fat. So when I'm saying fats, I mean it's fat you're consuming, carbs you're consuming, then protein, and then the fat that you're storing, in your body. Those are the four primary sources of energy that the body will use depending on what state it's in and what it needs.
Got it. And then in your book, there's also a section about metabolic boosters. So there's two that I want you to teach us about. Number one, you mentioned increasing your protein consumption, and then the other one was increasing your B12 consumption. So why is that important?
Yeah, well, increasing your protein consumption is important because protein is difficult to digest, actually. And when you have a problem digesting protein, or when you need to digest a lot of protein, you're making your body work. And that is really the key for people to have to understand, is that the more your body works, then the greater your metabolism, because metabolism is correlated to how much work that needs to be done. And so if you can increase your protein content, and by the way, I prefer more lean protein. I think that's the best way to go. However, there are people, I'm not one of them anymore. I used to eat a lot of steak, but I don't eat a lot of steak. But there are people who are eating steak, and that's obviously full of animal protein, but there's also non-animal protein like beans, chickpeas, and legumes. And so I think that it's important for people to understand that when you are eating this protein, that you're saying to your body, I am giving your body a challenge. And the challenge I'm giving your body now is you got to break this protein down. And it's not easy to break down protein. It's work. And when the body needs work, and by the way, this is why you exercise. When you are working, your body requires energy. And so when you are digesting food, that is work, which is why, to your point earlier, skipping meals, when you actually are eating, you are activating your gastrointestinal system, And that is a little bump in your metabolism because that requires you to digest food. So you're requiring the secretion of hormones. Your stomach needs to move. Your duodenum and the rest of your gastrointestinal, your small intestines, your large intestines. So that is really important for protein. Now, people often ask me, what form should you take the protein in? Okay, this is an important part. And I say, listen, there are all different forms of protein. People can get it through food naturally, whether it's through animal products, whether it's through non-animal products like chickpeas, beans, legumes, and lentils. But supplements, supplement protein supplements are not always bioavailable, which means that even though it says it has 8 grams of protein, we don't know how many grams of those proteins of the protein is actually available to the body for use. So the best way to take protein in my opinion, is through natural food because it's more bioavailable. But I'm interested, what do you think about protein bioavailability? Do you have a...
Yeah, I love that you explained that. You're right. Number one, I mean, animal protein will be more bioavailable than plant protein, just because it doesn't have some of those anti-nutrients. But to your point, when you're eating and chewing and masticating like a whole food, whether it's plant-based protein or animal-based protein, there's a whole cascade of different hormones like cholecystokinin, leptin, peptide YY that you get that you don't get versus like a powdered protein. So I'm a big fan of eating the whole protein, eating a whole food. Now, with that being said, there are times where I am, going from interview to interview or whatever it is, and I just did a workout, and I will sometimes supplement with a supplemental protein powder, but it's the exception, not the norm. So I agree with you, Ian. That's a fair point.
Yeah. And the last thing about B12, just so you know, a lot is not known about B12 and metabolism. It hasn't been totally worked out, but there have been studies that show that B12 increases cellular metabolism. So at the cellular level, it becomes very important. And there have been studies that have shown that people who are supplemented or ingest an adequate amount of B12, that they do have a bump in their metabolic rates. But the nuance of it has not been worked out to say for sure that these are the steps of how B12 does it. There's just been this association with B12 and increased metabolism.
Got it. Yeah. Well, hey, it's probably a good idea to get your B vitamins up either way. So might as well
That's
get
right.
it. And
That's
a lot
right.
of people who have that the MTHFR gene are usually deficient in their B vitamin. So that's especially true for you folks if you've tested your genes on that. I'm going to ask you maybe a difficult question to answer, but I'd love for you to answer it. You've been in the space for how many years now?
Oh, geez, at least 20.
At least 20 years. And
Yeah.
you've written 24 books in 20 years, which is amazing. Congrats on that. You have studied a lot. You've also worked with a whole bunch of clients. So the question is this: what are 2 things that you truly believed in the past that you no longer believe in because of new research or new application? Like 2 things that you believed in the past, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that you don't agree with anymore.
I believe that metabolism automatically slowed at the age of 30 because that's what the prevailing thought was. New research has shown that metabolism does not slow down and at 30. In fact, it remains relatively stable between the ages of 20 and 60. So in that age range, your metabolism is relatively stable. And so people tend to start slowing down at about 60, at about 0.7% per year, which is why I say to a lot of people, it's not that your metabolism is probably slower, it's that your metabolism is stuck or it's inflexible, which is why I wrote the MetFlex diet, because we need to unstick your metabolism, kind of get that lever greased up so you can go from carbs to fat. So that is the biggest one. I also think that, not related to food, but the idea that in order to gain muscle, hypertrophy, gain muscle mass, that you had to actually damage the muscle. Because the way muscle builds is you damage it, then there are cells called satellite cells that come to repair it, and they start laying down kind of recruitment of muscle fibers, and when they repair the muscle, it gets bigger. Now, new science shows you just need to bring the muscle to failure, which means, you can lift lighter weight, and when you can't lift anymore, you're right to failure, then without damaging it, you still can get hypertrophy or muscle growth. Those are the 2 things I think that have changed a lot since years ago when I was discussing them in a different form.
So that's interesting. So what are your favorite workout movements? Are you more of a fan of the compound movements versus the isolated ones, or do you like a combination of both? Like maybe your top five. If I were to ask you if you could only do five movements, not necessarily like workouts, but actual like movements. What are five? The top. What are your top five movements in terms of workouts?
Well, I like combination movements, but I think when you're looking for a specific muscle hypertrophy or growth in muscle mass in specific areas, isolation is the best. So, I think that, isolation on machines, a lot of bodybuilders use a lot of machines, believe it or not, because you can really isolate your biceps. You can isolate your pectoral muscles, or your traps. I mean, you really can focus on those areas. So it depends on the body part. I like to do isolation, but I also like to do, you know, kind of combinatorial, exercises, whether it's, even when you use dumbbells, when you're doing dumbbell biceps, for example, you're not just doing your biceps. I mean, you're using other muscles to help get that up. And so I think when you do dumbbell work, in most cases, you're actually using a lot of accessory muscles other than the primary muscle that you're focused on. So I think that you should do a combination of the exercises. Of course, would depend on what you're trying to do. If you want to work on your glutes, there's a whole set that I like for that. If you want to work on your quads, your abs, whatever it is, I think that you should focus on some combinatorial movements as well as some real isolations to really get that kind of pop in that particular area, and especially if you're trying to sculpt in that area also.
Yeah, that makes sense. So would you say that squats would give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of like, if you had to choose just one movement that would give you the most benefits, would you say it would be squats, like weighted squats?
I think squat is up there, but if you're going to do squat with a barbell on your back, across your shoulders, you got to be very careful. I don't believe you should do heavy weight with squats because I believe it puts a lot of pressure in your lumbar area, your lower back area. It concentrates a tremendous amount of pressure, and there are a lot of people who lift really heavy squats, and as they get older, they start having problems because the back is not made of metal. It's tissue, and while it's pretty strong, when you're putting 600 pounds of pressure in that particular area over a long period of time, then that can lead to very rapid degradation and premature aging of your tissues and your joints. So squats are a good complex movement, but I would say do lighter squats and make sure you have really good form.
What are your thoughts on barbell front squats? So it's not on your back; you're putting it on your kind of your collarbone. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a safer way to do squats. Obviously, people do less weight that way, which is fine. It's not about how you look in the gym that you're squatting a lot of weight, but I think that's a safer squat for people to do. And I feel like people tend to have, if you can do the form correctly, you can tend to have a really good form, and it actually can actually work more accessory muscles than having it on your back.
Yeah, totally agree. What does your supplementation look like for you personally? Like, what do you take? What do you rotate to? What are your favorites?
I take omega threes. That's it.
That's it.
I do. That's it. Everything through food. Everything through food. I'm a naturalist. I'm a naturalist. Everything through food.
Interesting. So why did you decide to just do mostly everything through food?
I've always been that way. I'm not a big fan of synthetic products going in. I think that natural nutrients in their most natural state tend to be more available to your body biologically. They tend to be safer, and they also come with other good things. They come with other nutrients, so they have a better nutrient package when you get them through food. And so I've always been that. I'm not against people doing some supplementation, but I do think that there's a lot of over supplementation in the market, and people should just be careful and be very read very well what you're taking.
For sure. Definitely over supplementation and a lot of synthetic crap out there. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Whole food is always best. You have 15,000 plus people in your Facebook group. My question is, how long have they been doing your MetFlex program? So maybe answer that first, and then I have a follow up question.
So 1,000 people did the program early, so they got the program before the book came out a few weeks ago. So they did it for 6 weeks, which is how long the program is, and now some of them are on their second and third cycle.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so Troubleshooting. Let's say, my audience, they go and they get your book, which they should. Everybody go get the book. We'll drop a link down below. But troubleshooting, let's say somebody is a sugar burner, right? They're or carb burner, or they're just for 20 years, they've only burned carbs, and now they want to become a fat burner. They want to actually do both, but first burn fat, then go and burn carbs again. But they also want to implement intermittent fasting. So were there some challenges? And I've seen there be some challenges with sugar burners, carb burners, wanting to do a 16-hour fast, and they might go hypoglycemic. They might get, hypoglycemia, like Dave Asprey calls it. But what are some of the coaching you've given them if they're not feeling well as they push their breakfast out 3 hours? They just haven't adapted well.
To go slowly. I think doing a 16-8, which is 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of feeding, is very severe for a lot of people. I recommend people start with 12-12 or 14-10 as their intermittent fasting windows. And the first number, of course, is the fasting time, and then work their way up to 16-8, which is the most that I would go. Some people go 18-6. I think that's really extreme for the average person. But 14-10 is when studies show that when you really start seeing some positive impact on the fasting. Obviously, 16-8 will give you more. Longer the fast it tends to be, the better. But you got to work your way slowly into it. You don't want to jump in head first and then it not work and then you totally give up on it. I think slow and steady wins the race.
100% agree. It's fasting is like a muscle you want to develop. If you've been couch potato for 20 years and you try to run a marathon, that is not going to look good. It's going to feel awful. Same thing with burning carbs for many years and then you try to fast. And the cool thing about it, you mentioned it earlier, you use your sleeping window as your fasting window. So you get 7, 8, or 9 hours, depending on how much you sleep. And then you could just add to that. Outside of fat loss, in regards to fasting, what are some other reasons somebody might want to practice fasting? What are some other health benefits of intermittent fasting?
Yeah, I'm actually, apologize. I'm running out of juice right now on my phone, believe it or not. Yeah, so I'm going to answer this question as fast as I can. Intermittent fasting has been shown to not only help with weight loss, not only help with fat burning, but it also helps with a cognitive help, memory, Alzheimer's prevention. It's also very important for inflammation. It has nice anti-inflammatory response. For people who have asthmatic symptoms, it's been shown to actually be beneficial for that. And so intermittent fasting goes beyond the scale. And that's why I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting. And there are a lot of studies that talk about the different types of intermittent fasting. But I think that all of us are already doing it because we're sleeping at night. And then we're waking up and eating. So we're already intermittent fasting. But I think that people should have a more organized structure to it and try to go a little longer.
Yeah, 100%. Do we need to wrap this up before you die on us here?
Yeah, I'm gonna lose my. I apologize. I'm gonna lose my. I didn't know my phone was so low on juice here.
How much percent do you have left?
2%.
Okay, yeah, we got to wrap this up. So, where's the best place to get your book?
Yes, the book is everywhere. Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, your local bookstore. Also, of course, follow me on Facebook, Metflex Diet. That's our Facebook group, and on Instagram at Dr. Ian Smith. Spell the doctor out, I-A-N Smith.
Ian, thank you, bro. I love the work you're doing. Congrats on your success. We'll do a round 2 with a fully charged phone, but thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
I want to come on and talk to you again. I want to talk about your book. I need to read your book because I like the idea of Keto Flex. I think we're in the same lane there, so I really appreciate it.
We totally are, brother. Thank you so much. I'll send you a copy.
All right,
we'll talk soon. Thank you, Ian. Go charge your phone.
I appreciate it. Take care.